What a second international break of the Premier League season has been and almost past now, which means we can get back to our Luton Town Premier League previews. We're going to look ahead to the trip to Nottingham Forest this Saturday, as well as giving our quickfire predictions for all 10 Premier League matches this weekend. If you're looking forward to that, then please do put a thumbs up on the video. Of course, as always, please do get your comments in below with your predictions for this weekend. And if you beat or match my score, you will get a shout out in the recap during the next episode. But firstly, before we go and get into our preview of Nottingham Forest versus Luton, which will include reflecting on Palace's 0-0 draw with Forest, and of course Luton's 1-0 defeat at home to Spurs, I've got a couple of quick plugs to get through as well. Firstly, we've just interviewed another Luton legend on the channel. That video will be coming very soon. Keep your eyes peeled for that, subscribe and turn your notification bell on to make sure you don't miss it. And also, we've got a Football Manager channel too. That new game is due out later this week, so keep your eyes peeled for them, both on Twitch and on YouTube. We're going to be managing Luton on Twitch for a bit of fun as well. You can come and join us for some light-hearted football chat over there. But for now, let's get back to the Premier League this weekend as we return to action with Luton away at Nottingham Forest. I hope you're looking forward to it. It's going to be a good day out. However, it was a pretty frustrating day for both of these sides in front of goal before the international break. Luton thwarted by 10-man Tottenham Hotspur in a 1-0 defeat at Kenilworth Road. Nottingham Forest, on the other hand, were held to a goalless draw away at Crystal Palace in what was a pretty tepid game, but one they probably edged in truth. Let's start with the Luton versus Spurs game though, because it was a very weird game in a few chunks, wasn't it? Because the first 20 minutes of the game, it was almost like an old third round FA Cup tie. I can only liken it a bit to when we were in League Two and played Newcastle away. In the first half, we just let them have the ball, let them attack. And for the first 20 minutes of the Spurs game, that's exactly what happened. It probably should have been 3 up in 20 minutes. Kaminsky made a brilliant save at the end of that. At the start of it, Richarlison had a pretty stinking miss after about a minute. Most Luton fans, of course, won't be gutted at that from the former Watford man. But some brilliant play from Spurs. Maddison, Son, Richarlison, the movement was just too good to handle. And Kulusevski was shown back weirdly onto his left foot a few times, which caused a few problems from great balls into the box. However, Luton weathered that storm and grew into the half towards the end of it. And by the end of the half, it was a fairly even game. Then we had the big standout moment, didn't we? Which was just bizarre. For a club like Spurs, who are unbeaten this season, were dominating the game, it looked for the most part like a matter of time, to be honest. Frustration clearly crept in because on a yellow card, Basuma went for one of the worst dives you will ever see just outside the box. I do want to say a bit of a fair play to the referee at this point because he was getting a bit of stick prior. I don't think there's that many officials that would have the balls to give a second yellow card for that. Would really believe, yes, I've nailed this on, it's absolutely spot on, you're getting sent off. Though, you've got to say fair play because although it should happen regularly, it's something that probably doesn't. And also, at the end of the game, Ange Postecoglou didn't try to cover it up, said it was a mistake, it was stupid, and that's what you've got to do. So, a red card left Luton playing 10 men in the second half, but very similar to the game against Wolves a couple of home games prior. A little bit of pressure told early in the second half. This time Spurs had 2 or 3 corners in succession, whipped balls in which we dealt with well, then produced a short one which we didn't deal with well. The quality of England international James Maddison showed, and Spurs via Mickey van der Ven were a goal up 5 minutes into the second half. That left Luton with work to do and a bit of a dent in the confidence, especially when you consider just a couple of minutes prior to those corners, Luton had to return the favour from Richarlison in the first half. Elijah Adebayo missing a similarly easy chance, unfortunately not taking the opportunity to put us one up. From that point, Luton did create a few chances, produced a pretty good performance in the second half overall. But let's be honest, while this isn't a game that's going to define Luton's season, it's another one of those frustrating ones. The positive you have got to say, which is bar the first 20 minutes of it, we competed throughout the game. And we kept it tight, we kept it close, we're in these matches. But we didn't ever really look like winning it by that one glorious chance we had with Adebayo. And even by then, if Spurs had taken theirs, my prediction of 4-1 might not have been out of sight. Because let's be honest, Spurs dominated that first 20. So a little bit of a lesson early on in the game. Far more competitive in the second half and in the last 15 of the first. But ultimately another defeat in a game that isn't going to be that important come the end of the season. What might be is a trip to Nottingham Forest, a side that finished in the bottom half on their return to the Premier League last year. Of course, were well known for spending a lot of money and improving their squad with a lot of players, but they had a lot out of contract as well, and some of those are coming very good. However, I do like what they've done this summer, and weirdly, they look a little better away from home. The Palace v Spurs game was the one on TV in the evening, so I got to watch that one in full as well. And while it wasn't an inspiring performance from either, and neither side carried a real constant threat, Forest were probably the better of the two. Obviously, Gibbs White, one of the stars for them last season, hit the post in the first half. Murillo, the centre-half, who I'm really impressed with from the few games of them I've seen on TV. He carried the ball half the length of the pitch, produced a true Brazilian moment, and almost scored an absolutely wonderful individual goal. But even defensively, he looks rock solid. Forest have already equalled their away tally for clean sheets this season from last year, where they had a pretty dismal record but stayed up on their home form. And although they haven't been quite as convincing at home this year, they are still unbeaten at the City ground. They'll probably consider themselves a little bit frustrated by that, despite the fact they are unbeaten at home this season, because when you consider the opposition they've played, in terms of promoted Burnley, in terms of Brentford at home, games they might have expected to get results in their quest to stay up, they have been frustrated to a couple of draws. But 5 points from 3 home games, you've got to say it's been a pretty promising start for Forest again. And with the signings they've added this summer, the likes of Hudson-Odoi, the quality of Murillo coming into the side, where centre-half was a bit of a weakness for them last year, I really feel Forest are stepping in the right direction and they look like a good Premier League team now. However, we have got to look at a route Luton could get through in this game, and generally, Luton's record against Forest hasn't been terrible in recent seasons. So if you remember the season Forest came up, Luton actually got a big 1-0 win at home to them just before. That was when Forest were flying. And in that game, if I remember rightly, Fred Onyedinma was put left wing back to deal with Jed Spence at the time. Brennan Johnson was ahead of him, being man-marked by Amari Bell. And they did mark them out of the game. But of course, Fred Onyedinma was no longer at Luton. Jed Spence and Brennan Johnson no longer at Nottingham Forest. That's the difference 18 months can make in football. We also got a 0-0 draw away from home that season. And the last game prior to that at the City ground with fans was in the 1920 season, just a couple of months before COVID hit. Luton actually went 1-0 up in that game, did really well at the start. Remember it for Glenn Ray returning from injury and making a real difference in the team. But then Sluga threw one in his net and it all fell apart from there. So not the best memory for me as an away day, but hopefully it will be long forgotten this weekend with a positive result. I can see this being a fairly tight game again. Rob Edwards has definitely improved the setup of the team, and the way we're playing with the 3 up front now does cause a bit of a threat. And of course, we've got to talk about the one new addition, because since we've changed formation, one of the problems we've had is a lack of depth in wide areas, meaning at times the likes of Corley Woodrow, Luke Berry have come on, and we've either had to change shape or in some cases chuck the likes of Woodrow out wide. Well, not this weekend perhaps, because Andros Townsend has been training with the club a few weeks, featured in an under-21 game, and is now signed on until January. Can he make a difference? Probably initially off the bench, and provide a little bit of quality and spark late in a tight game. Well, we'll wait and see if he can be a difference maker, but we know he's got the quality if he's still got the fitness, so that could be an interesting short-term signing, and it's probably quite a clever one from a Luton point of view. Initially, though, going into the game, I think we'll see a very similar 11. Lots of problems with injury and defence. Osho back on the grass, but seemingly not fit yet. And Amari Bell limped off early against Burnley, which obviously was a huge blow for Luton early in the game. So I think I've waffled enough now about the two sides. I am wary of the Nottingham Forest threat, particularly against our defence. They've got a lot of mobility in attacking areas and wide areas. It's something that has been a weakness for us at times this year. But of course, we've got our own positives too, the likes of Tom Lockyer back and playing in the Wales squad, and plenty of other talent going away now as well. Ogbene, albeit in a very poor Republic of Ireland performance, did get man of the match again. So I'm going to go in this game, maybe slightly ambitiously, but I do feel it's going to be really tight. And based on Forest at home a couple of times this year against similar types of opponents, I'm going to go for Luton to nick a 1-1 draw. I can see it being really cagey. I can see either side winning it by 1 in truth. I wouldn't be shocked if Forest nicked a 1-0 or a 2-1. On this occasion, I can see it being a similar game to Fulham. Very few chances at either end, and it's just whether both can take them. So I'm going to say each side will take 1, and it will be a 1-1 draw. I'm sure, and I have no doubt that the Forest fans will disagree with that, and there is every chance they could nick this game. I wouldn't be surprised. I think Forest have made good progress. I think this summer has been a lot better than the last for them, and I do think they're going to have a really comfortable season. And to be fair, what I'm really hopeful of is something that we haven't seen yet this season, because we've been on a few away days, and you look at the likes of Chelsea, Fulham and Brighton, with the greatest of respect, there wasn't much home atmosphere at those games. The thing I'm looking forward to at Forest is they generally do get behind the team. They generally do produce a good atmosphere, and I hope I'll still be able to say the same next weekend, because it seemed to be a big difference maker in the Premier League last year, the fact that they did have one of the best atmospheres going. If they can produce it again this weekend, it might be the difference maker, you never know. But that's my prediction for Forest versus Luton. We've now got to move on to the rest of the weekend's action. And before I give you my predictions for matchday 9, let's go and have a look back at matchday 8. Now, if you watch this episode today and our championship predictions tomorrow, you're going to see a fun bit of history in the full predictions recap. So we're going to keep an eye on those. It's a little bit of fun. But this is what I went for on matchday 8, and I actually had a very good weekend in the end. Manchester United's late turnaround against Brentford. Thank you, Scott McTominay, got me 3 points there. And I also got a perfect score for Brighton versus Liverpool, a 2-2 draw on a Sunday. 4 other points for the Tottenham win, the Chelsea victory, Everton at home to Bournemouth, and Arsenal's narrow win against City. Get me 10 points overall. And that, for the first time I think this season, was the best score across the comments. I beat everyone in the comments for the first time in the Premier League. Done it a few times in the Championship this season, but very happy to get off the mark here. Let's hope it's a good omen for a Luton result this weekend. So hopefully you'll be motivated to beat me this weekend. Let me know your score predictions down in the comments below. But this is what I've gone for matchday 9. And boy, there's some big games, aren't there? We start with the Merseyside derby, where I've gone for Liverpool to get a comprehensive 3-1 win, albeit Everton have been solid at times this season. I've gone for Wolves to nick a 1-0 at Bournemouth as Gary O'Neill. Surely he'll have the lads motivated for that one. Brentford and Burnley to play out a surprise thriller. I'm just worried about Burnley at the back, so I've gone for Brentford to edge it by 3-2. City are going to bounce back in style. They've not had back-to-back league defeats for a long time. They're certainly not going to make it 3 in a row. The way Brighton have played, we saw against Villa. We've seen in a couple of games, actually. They got opened up in that one and against Liverpool. And this could be a tough day for them. If they're not more solid and don't make it a bit cagey, I could see City having a real rampage here. Haaland's due a goal. He might get 2 or 3. I'm going for the big one, 5-1. Newcastle United to nick a 1-0 at home to Palace, who have got the most clean sheets of anyone this year. Nottingham Forest to draw 1-0 with Luton. You know about that already. Arsenal to pip the late kick-off at much improved Chelsea by 2-1. That will keep them right in the title race for sure. Sheffield United v Manchester United. I just see this game suiting the visitors on the counter, on the breakaway. They've got quality and they've got pace, so I'm going 3-1 United. I've gone for Villa to lose 2-1 at West Ham, who did very well to get a point at Newcastle. They've had a good start to the season. They've got a real set-piece threat, and they've also got a threat on the counter, something Villa at times struggled with against Brighton. And then the final game on Monday is Spurs versus Fulham, and I'm going for a comfortable 2-0 win. Spurs should have taken their chances early against Luton. They didn't. They allowed them an opportunity. No Basuma will obviously be a bit of a miss, but Fulham, bar the quality of Paulinho holding, maybe don't have the most creative midfield. It's more combative than anything. So I do feel they'll be able to survive without him in this one. I'm going to go for them to win by 2-0. Those are just my predictions for matchday 9 though. Do you agree with them or disagree? Let me know in the comment section and give me your predictions for matchday 9 as well. If you do beat me or match my score, you'll get a shout out in the next recap. Hopefully there'll be a few of you in there next weekend. Keep an eye out tomorrow for the championship predictions, because it's a very different style of recap in that one. And of course, if you want to stay up to date and make sure you don't miss anything from the podcast, then please do subscribe and turn that notification bell on. As I mentioned earlier, feel free to come and check out the FM channel and the Twitch channel, where we have regular live streams talking football and soon to be playing Football Manager with Luton Town. But in the meantime, do chuck a thumbs up on this one. Check out all the other playlists up in the eye above. We had a couple of manager specials from the Championship last week, including one featuring a Premier League legend. But we'll be back here tomorrow afternoon for our Championship predictions for the weekend. I'll see you there.